Okay, we are live in 5 seconds.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are very excited to have everyone. Today, we're going to talk about financial inclusion in franchising. I'm Ashley Mancini with the International Franchise Association Foundation. We are so excited to be bringing you today's program. Just as a background for all of us, the International Franchise Association Foundation houses our Diversity Institute. And the mission of the Diversity Institute is really to promote and foster diversity and inclusion within the franchising space. And this year, we are really increasing our efforts with significant help from our generous sponsors over at KeyBank. You'll be hearing from them shortly. They are our sponsors for what will be the 4-part series. This is the first in our series for the coming year. And we are also very excited to be working with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce to broaden our footprint and to welcome more entrepreneurs into the franchising community. So with that, I just want to give a couple of housekeeping announcements. We are recording this and we'll have access to this afterwards, so that we would encourage you to share it with your contacts, your networks, your friends, your family, get the word out. We are also live on Facebook. So we are broadcasting to a larger community. We've got about 160 folks on the call right now. So we are very excited with the enthusiasm and the excitement around the program. We will be presenting for about the first hour or so. We will then be having some questions. We will take all of the questions through the Q&A box that will be on the bottom of your screen on the Zoom screen. So if you just want to submit those as they come in, if you have a question for our first panelist, we will make sure that we address those at the conclusion when we open things up for Q&A. So I believe that those are the primary housekeeping announcements for today. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Philip Dunn with the U.S. Black Chamber to kind of talk through their participation.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ashley. And good afternoon, everyone, and happy National Small Business Week. I'm Philip W. Dunn, Program Manager with the United States Black Chambers of Commerce. The United States Black Chambers of Commerce, Inc. provides committed visionary leadership and advocacy in the realization of economic empowerment. We do this through the creation of resources and initiatives, and we support African American chambers of commerce and business organizations in their work of developing and growing Black enterprises. Now, I want to take a moment to thank all of our registrants and our attendees here today at International Franchise Association's Opportunities in Franchising webinar. Special shout out to the BBFG members who decided to log in today, and I also want to extend a special greeting to those who will watch this recording later. On behalf of the USBC, our president, Ron Busby, our board, and our staff, I want to give a special thank you to our partner, the IFA, and today's sponsor, KeyBank, for bringing together this amazing webinar packed with powerful information to help transform our community. I also want to thank the esteemed panel organized to deliver this transformational event to you all today. Each of them brings with them valuable experience, knowledge, and insight to help those interested in franchising take those first steps necessary toward achieving your franchising goals. So I encourage you all to follow up on the information and action items that the panelists and the speaker share with you today, because now is the time for Black entrepreneurs to get involved in franchising. Franchise business development is expected to grow by 3.2% in 2021, but only 8% of those establishments are owned by the Black community. So this series is going to focus on a couple of roadblocks to Black ownership in franchising, such as lack of access to capital and awareness to the franchising business model. So please soak up as much information as possible and let it prepare you for the future opportunities in franchising. Lastly, I want to thank my counterpart, Ashley Mancini and Hayter, for their tireless work and commitment to bringing this webinar together. So thank you all, and Ashley, I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Philip, and just a special welcome to everybody on the webinar today that is joining us as either members or friends of the U.S. Black Chamber. We're very excited to be working with you all. And in the interest of time, we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to turn things over to Jim Fliss, the Senior Vice President and the National Small Business Manager with KeyBank. and he is going to be leading our discussion on some of the financial ins and outs that you need to know as you kind of start your entrepreneur journey in franchising. So Jim?
Thank you, Ashley and Philip, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Thrilled to be here with you all. Before we get started, I'd like to take a quick moment to get to know our panel. Rachel Sampson leads our KeyBank's Key for Women initiative. Bob Cohen is the chair of Cleveland SCORE, and I'm Jim Fliss. I lead KeyBank's national SBA and franchise teams. Why don't we all just take a couple of minutes to quickly share a little bit about what we do on a day-to-day basis. Rachel, why don't we start with you?
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jim. Just thank you to the panelists for IFA, as well as the U.S. Black Chamber for having us today. KeyBank is absolutely thrilled to be able to sponsor such a fantastic event. At KeyBank, our corporate purpose and mission is really to help its clients and communities thrive. When we talk about our community, we're talking about an inclusive, our entire community. So this panel and discussion today really gets to that in terms of how we are really passionate about financial inclusion and making the lives better for all. That starts with the cornerstone of finance. All of us know so much about the challenges with the wealth gap and so many other things. And I'm so pleased that we're talking about franchising because, as Philip mentioned, it's a great opportunity for us. We'll talk more about the framework that's already in place, but when we talk about some of the challenges that business owners face, franchising really provides that model where it's set up for you to succeed. The franchisors want you to succeed just as much as you want to succeed. We'll talk about access to capital and what that means, but we really want to make sure that you have the tools and resources that you need, because we'll talk about all of those things, the importance of banking relationships, those resources, the networking and connections. We want to do all of that. And that's similar to what I do for Key for Women. In that role, we advocate, connect, and empower women in business to build on their financial journey to success. And we do that across the country through a wide network of advocates in each of our markets. In addition to that, I have had some experience in that franchisor and franchisee space, as I was most recently a commercial banker in our Cincinnati market, managing relationships for those businesses with an annual sales revenue of $20 million to about $300 million a year. So a lot of great information to share. I encourage you to dig deep, to take notes, to ask questions. It is so critical for you to know your banker and your banker to know you. And this is a great way to build that foundation of how you actually do that. We saw with PPP, it is so critical to have that foundation, your attorney, your banker, your accountant, because there's so much information out there. Not one person can know everything about everything. That's why we've got subject matter experts and folks like our panel today to really help guide you so that you're successful.
Awesome. Awesome. Great response. Bob, same question for you.
Hi, thanks, Jim, and thanks to all the participants for being here today. My name is Bob Cohen, and I'm the chair of the Cleveland SCORE chapter. SCORE is a national organization. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few more minutes. We're probably 10 to 12,000 deep in terms of overall volunteers, and our main purpose in life is to foster small businesses. And to play off of what Rachel had just said, you don't have to go through this alone. Any part of your business journey, there are people around, including SCORE, that can help you grow your business and help you to market your business and work with your franchisor. So, one of the things that we like to do is make sure that all of our clients are with us for as long as they possibly can be for the life of their business, from the time they start up to the time that they exit. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along, but I know we're pressed for time. So Jim, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Bob. So again, everyone, I'm Jim Fliss. I lead our SBA business and our franchise business nationally. So in short, I have sales reps in most of our major markets around the country. Our primary mission is to provide access to capital to business owners, more specifically around SBA lending. So these products help borrowers conserve cash and improve cash flow. So with that, that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, or largely talk about, is this notion of access to capital. More specifically, how do you work with your local bank? How to best prepare yourself for success? How do you bolster your business plan, get your financials in order, et cetera, et cetera. So, so as Rachel had mentioned earlier, Key's corporate purpose is to help communities to thrive, right? And we firmly believe that, by helping businesses, by getting them access to capital, supporting entrepreneurship, capitalism, it's the best way to help a community to thrive. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is sort of the meat and potatoes of what you need to do to get yourself ready, right? Who can help you? What resources are available? Whether it's KeyBank, Key for Women, the IFA, SCORE, or the Black Chamber. And we are absolutely committed to helping bridge the economic wealth gap in this country. And that's why we're here today, to talk about a roadmap to ownership, to talk about what's possible. And everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different, right? Some of you on this call may be ready to go out and buy a franchise and start a franchise, soon. For others, it might be 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. But what we're talking about is the realities involved and the roadmap to get there. There are some advantages and disadvantages to franchising I want to touch on real quick. I think one of the big advantages when you think about franchising, remember you're in business for yourself, right? So you've got all of the upside of ownership, but you're not in business by yourself. So when you partner with a franchise, you're affiliated with the brand name. You become part of a proven system, a proven model, right? You'll receive ongoing training, ongoing support. You'll have access to products and equipment and services that a non-franchised business might not. Now, there's some disadvantages, or maybe said differently, some things to think about that are maybe not as positive. With franchise, remember, you're not completely independent. There's going to be some restrictions on goods and services you can use in your method of operation. You're going to have to pay a royalty. A lot of times these are between 3 and 6% of monthly sales. Pay for things like trademark usage, training, just basically being part of the system. Sometimes franchisors can do things that aren't good for the system, right? They do things that cause public relation nightmares, or maybe just they take their eye off the ball. And when a franchisor gets sick, franchisees can get sick as well in terms of their performance. So as we go along, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. Just jot them down. We'll try to leave some time at the end of this segment, and if not, towards the end of the overall program. Rachel, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about the programs and resources available through Key for Women, the women-owned, businesses and entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So Key for Women, as I mentioned, our mission is to advocate, connect, and empower women in business. And that's in particular for entrepreneurs, but also leaders. And we do not want to forget about our majority allies. So we are open to males participating in our programming as well. We have a nationwide network of like-minded members that boast a little over 7,000 to date, where we look to connect those women with the tools and resources that they need, whether that's information, partnering with organizations like FOB and SCORE, as well as providing our own event programming that's carried out even locally through our markets, 26 of them in 15 states, ranging from Maine to Alaska.
Nice. So you mentioned that the program is delivered locally in key markets. So who actually delivers the program resources?
So we have over 3,000 certified advisors across our corporation those certified advisors voluntarily go through rigorous training to, one, understand the challenges that women face in business, similar to minorities, whether that's access to capital, imposter syndrome, unconscious or conscious bias, and so many other things. And then we couple that with the solutions that we can offer as a financial institution in our programming that's complementary for you to join our network and collaborate, talk about some of the challenges, some of the successes, and hopefully create an environment where there's some natural B2B activity that will occur.
Nice. So I'm gonna shift a little bit on you. What would you share to our participants in terms of the best advice when beginning a business endeavor?
What I would say, thanks for shifting gears on me. What I would say is go all in. Don't wonder, don't hesitate. If you're going to do it with tenacity and grit. You've got the resources, you've got whether the background is, whether you've had some leadership experience just working, you know, as you mentioned, that model is there and you have folks to support you. So if you're going to do it, do that, but also begin with the end in mind. So many folks think about getting into entrepreneurship, but then there's no exit. You know, as we continue to talk about, when you have your wealth tied up into a business, that is your wealth. So what does that look like over the course of your life and your journey? How does that get passed down? What's your exit plan? What do you want to do? You've got to start with an end in mind of what that looks like for you before you start, so that you're setting that right foundation and those right goals so that you're on the right trajectory. And when you're talking with others, you can specifically say, this is what I want to do and how I want to do it. And if you don't know what that is, then you can partner with folks like Bob that can help you with those strategic plans and other things so that you're asking yourself those critical questions. But you have to do it all the way, whether you're working for yourself, working for others. You know, you've got to pursue that and pursue it diligently every single day, because that's the only thing that's going to continue to help you and your loved ones for generations to come.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of things today, and I don't know that I know a substitute for grit and tenacity, as you talk about. Entrepreneurship's not easy, and it's a lot of work. But if you get up every day and chip away at it, you know, people look up and often have success. So that is really great advice. So one final question. So how do women entrepreneurs and business owners join Key for Women? Where can they get more information?
Great question. Well, you can join our network by going to www.keybank.com/join K4W. Again, that's key.com/join K4W. When you're on our website and you join our complimentary program, you'll get access to a lot of the tools and resources that we have on our site, as well as partnering, and you'll stay in the know of what's happening. For instance, we are having an event next week called Fraud Awareness, where we'll have Jen Martin, our head of fraud here at KeyBank, talking about how to protect yourself, your business, and your loved ones. We also have an analyst from the FBI that'll be talking about that, which is so important with cyber attacks. We hear so often that companies' financials have been taken and held for ransom, that identity theft is on the rise. So really getting that information, getting it out in front so you know how to be proactive is part of the programming that we offer at Key for Women on a complimentary basis.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. So let's shift gears a little bit further and kind of dive into financing, access to capital. You know, some of you may be asking, do I need to know what type of loan I need to apply for before coming to a bank? And the answer is no. You know, you don't need to know that. That's what your banker will help work through. But I would encourage you to think about some of the things I want to touch on now in order to get yourself ready and to be prepared, right? These are the things as a banker that I'm going to listen for and I'm going to look for when someone is applying for a loan. I think a good place to start is evaluate the strength of the franchisor, right? Look at basic things like the demand for the product, the competition, the name recognition of the particular brand. Having a point of view on the franchisor's ability to get you trained up and support you right? If things don't go quite as planned. Look at the franchise performance. Are they opening up a bunch of stores that are staying open, or are they opening up a bunch of stores that are opening and then quickly closing, right? So how is the system performing, and what type of growth opportunities are available? So really understand the concept. I think before you talk to the bank is exceedingly important. Asking yourself, do you have the means to obtain the financial capital? So we'll get into this in a little bit, but basically what I'm talking about is, do you have 10% roughly of the total project cost to put in to the transaction? And if you don't, then that leads to a different discussion. It would be music to my ears if I sat down with an applicant. They said, hey, I've called a bunch of former franchisees or current franchisees and pick their brains. Be cognizant, we're at some point we're going to be throwing dollars around, and these are big decisions, right? So at some point I would encourage you to think about engaging a lawyer to look at the documents, and or accountant who may specialize in franchising. And last but not least, I would encourage you to read the franchise disclosure document. Before you sit down with your banker, a franchise disclosure document will tell you a lot of what you need to know. So let's talk about the cost of a franchise. There's a wide range. Some franchises you can get into for $15,000. Some might cost more than $3 million to get into. Okay, but there's a wide range of options, and there's literally thousands of franchise concepts out there. Again, 10% down is going to be important. Good credit, good personal credit is going to be fundamental as well. And a banker will also look for transferable business skills. So let's say you want to open a sub shop. Doesn't mean you need to, need to know how to make sandwiches. But if you've worked in a restaurant, or you've worked on something similar where you've developed some transferable management skills, that's one of the things a bank will look for. The initial franchise fee, typical, about 70% of the franchise systems have a fee of less than $30,000. As I mentioned before, think in terms of roughly a 10% downstroke into the project. 75% of franchise systems require startup capital of less than $250,000. 43% require startup capital of less than $100,000. And 17% require startup capital of less than $50,000. So what I want to share is I think for many, this is probably more attainable than maybe some would have thought, initially. But everyone's situation is different. Again, it might take 12 months, 24 months, 36 months to sort of get through your due diligence process to figure out the brand, to work with the banks, to do what you need to do to be ready. So again, do you need to know what type of loan when you come to the bank? The answer is no, but really think about the things that I just went over with you, because that's exactly what a banker is going to be looking at. So let's fast forward a little bit from that stage. And now you've met with your banker. A banker is then going to say, here's an application, here's a request for information. We've got to get some numbers down on paper, right? So bankers speak the language of numbers, meaning you need to have, your costs, your financial projections, the assumptions around those projections. So oftentimes a bank will ask for personal tax returns, a personal financial statement that shows kind of your as an individual, your assets and your liabilities, a management resume, a business plan, including the use of loan proceeds, right? The assumptions, right? Sort of the story behind the numbers. And again, liquidity and Fico scores are going to be really important to a bank at this stage of the game. So Bob, I would imagine this is an area where SCORE can help prepare individuals before going to bank. Can you help clarify a couple of things for me?
Sure.
So what is the difference between a FICO score and a credit score? What's considered a good score? And what are some actions people can take to improve their credit scores?
Thanks, Jim. Good questions. Before I get into that, one of the things I did want to bring up is that SCORE is there to help put many of the things that Jim just mentioned together with you. You would be doing the work, but obviously we would be here to help advise and work with you in ways to put together your business plan, your financial plans. We have expertise throughout the country with people that have done much of what Jim had just mentioned, and has also been involved in helping our clients to do the same thing. So let's talk about the credit scores. Both are evaluations of a consumer's credit worthiness. Fico is a score that's derived from very consistent formula. So if you were to go online and look at what a Fico score is, you would see that it's very specific in terms of the amount of loans you've made, the amount of the way you pay back your bills, and so on and so forth. So while FICO is a very consistent formula, there are other credit scores that are determined by various formulas. And I would say that bankers would look at either or both. And that's why when you look at your credit scores, they can be different from agency to agency. But FICO is the basic scoring. It's got a range between 300 and 850. And, you know, while the industry specific FICO scores range from 250 to 900, obviously the better your score is, you know, the better it is for you. So lenders are in the business of managing risk. The higher the score that you've got on your either your FICO and or your other credit agencies, the lower the risk is to the bank. So that gives you the possibility potentially of getting lower interest rates and much greater chance of approval. So one of the quickest ways to improve your score is to always pay your bills on time, carefully manage your balances on your credit cards. And that's another thing that they look at, how many credit cards you have, how much credit you're applying for at any given time on your credit cards. And that all has a percentage of what's reflected in your overall credit score. So regardless of whether you're looking to purchase a business, managing your credit score is essential when it comes to seeking any kind of finance.
So now that I understand credit scores and FICO scores, I have a couple questions regarding SCORE, your
Sure.
institution. So how does SCORE help early stage entrepreneurs, franchisees, business startups, et cetera, you know, and really even established businesses? How do you work with them and help them?
So first of all, we're a national nonprofit association. We're dedicated, as I said earlier, to helping small businesses get off the ground, to grow and achieve their goals through education and mentorship. We mentor face-to-face. Well, right now it's all virtual, but we also provide ongoing workshops and webinars that people can attend to learn a lot more about various businesses. And the subject matter is very much geared toward either startups and or to help growing businesses that are already established. We've been in business as an organization for over 50 years. And as I said before, our mission is to foster small businesses. We're a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration. We've got in Cleveland here about 85 local volunteers, and they're all certified mentors. We've all been through training. Rachel mentioned some of the training that the people that work with Key for Women go through. We have a rigorous training process as well to become certified to work with small businesses. We've got 11,000 volunteers, probably nationwide. So we find expertise in almost any possible field you can imagine. And we all have access to any of the volunteers that are out there throughout the country. There's more than 300 chapters in the US. So our mentors and volunteers are either business owners right now, managers, retired executives, and experts in their fields. We've got many subject matter experts that are very much industry specific. So our volunteers will share experience and knowledge. We will help existing and potential businesses to grow and succeed. So if you're in the process of starting up a franchise, one of the things that we can work with you on, you know, is putting together that business plan, that financial plan, helping to get your documents ready to go to the bank. And even, as Jim mentioned earlier, when you sit down and you talk with a banker, they are going to be questioning you on the things that you're bringing to them in your business plan. It's really important to understand your financials and defend your financials, and we can help work with those things.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Because yeah, what I laid out can seem a little daunting, right? But there are resources available and people that will roll up their sleeves and try to help you through the process. Along those same lines, Bob, mentoring, and I know there's some mentoring programs delivered at SCORE. How can folks get started as a client with you guys?
Well, the easiest way to do it, and I'll put this in a chat in a couple of minutes, is just to go to score.org on your web, and just type in find a mentor. There's a tab in the top left corner. Press that and fill out the information, and you will be contacted within 48 hours by a SCORE mentor wanting to set up a mentoring session with you and talk to you about your business. So when a client engages with SCORE, we'll follow you, through the life of your business. That's one of our things that we do. I mean, we've got clients that we've been working with for years and years, and we may not talk to them for 5 or 6 months. Then all of a sudden we'll get a call. Hey, I've got this issue. How can you help us? And that's a good thing. So, we'll follow your business for the life of your business. As I mentioned earlier, you don't have to go it alone. And that's a really important thing to remember when you're trying to start a business. You just have good advice around you, you're going to do much better. And, we found that people that work with SCORE, if you actually look at successful businesses, the ones that have worked with SCORE have a better success rate, believe it or not, than ones that do not. So, we follow our business. We work with business planning, financial planning, sales and marketing, strategies for starting, improving customer and vendor relationships, establishing boards of advisors, and up to and including exit planning.
Good stuff. Thanks for all that you do. We're bumping up against time, so I'm going to get through the balance of the presentation fairly quickly. But thought I'd talk for just a couple of minutes on SBA loans. We've touched on that. Just a quick overview of an SBA 7A loan. Basically, all it is the bank loans. The bank makes you a loan, and the bank gets a percentage of that loan, typically 75% guaranteed to them, up to $5 million. And as long as a franchise is on the SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration's franchise directory, they'll generally be eligible. But more importantly, the benefits to you all as SBA borrowers. As I said before, these programs, the government guarantees our loan, right, or a percentage of our loan at Key. So we pass the benefits along to you, and they come in the form of smaller equity injections, right? So instead of 20% or more down into a project, we can do 10%, right? So that helps you, it provides more access to capital, and it helps you conserve cash. The second thing that the SBA allows us to do is extend the amortization of the loan, right? So instead of taking that franchise loan and saying, hey, you need to pay us back over a 5-year period, we can take that to 10 years, right? Doesn't mean you can't pay the loan down quicker if times are good. It just means you're not saddled with a huge payment. So these programs help you conserve cash and improve cash flow. The guarantee also helps us get comfortable as a bank with collateral light transactions. So, let's think of a restaurant, right? Banks, to be blunt, aren't really enamored with fryers and freezers and prep tables and cash registers and tables and chairs. From a collateral perspective, that doesn't really help a bank, but a guarantee does. So when you think of franchising, especially early on, SBA can be a great way as you get multiple locations together. Then conventional financing is often more of the option. So, again, I'm gonna talk about, just real quickly, touch on some things to put a bow on this. Again, we would encourage you to do your homework, read the franchise disclosure documents, seek out partners like SCORE as you think about putting your business model and business plan together, be able to speak to the assumptions and numbers around your projection. Tap all of these resources to be able to go to the bank and be prepared to apply for capital. Rachel, let's turn this back to you for a minute. When you think about growth and growing from, say, location 1 to 2 or 3 or 4, what are the things you need to think about?
Yes, we'll want to answer that, but I have a quick question to throw back to you first.
Sure.
When we think about KeyBank as an SBA preferred lender, can you talk about what that means and why it's important when you're looking for banking relationships partners?
Yeah, so I think from what it means to be a preferred SBA lender is, let's say KeyBank makes you guys a loan, right? With an SBA guarantee on it. Effectively, what we do as a preferred lender is we make you that loan, and then we notify the government, hey, I made them this loan. If you're not a preferred lender, what the bank has to do is go to the SBA and say, I want to make you a loan. Is it okay? And that elongates the process. So said differently, as a preferred lender, basically what we do is we rubber stamp the approval and we notify the government that we've made the loan.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Bet.
So that helps to tie all that in as we talk about what we're looking for, because we're making that case up front and can
Yep.
get you those funds much quicker when you're looking to do that. And as we talk about moving quickly, that can happen, and growth can happen quickly too. So we talk about, failing to plan is planning to fail. And
Absolutely.
It's really good if you can start early and formulate that growth plan that we've talked about, so that when opportunities present themselves, you have the ability to evaluate them. Having those regular conversations with your banker so that when you need that loan or that loan is already in place, you've got that working capital line to tap into. As we think about the pandemic, and folks, it's much easier to tap into a line that you already have than to ask for it later, depending on the performance of your company. So keeping that in mind, going back to how important it is for you to know your banker and your banker to know you. Also, just really being able to having an integrated lender that can help you in developing those solutions to meet your goals. Those solutions, as Jim mentioned, may vary by stage. So in your growth and trajectory, for instance, if you're opening your first location, you might be financing, with your personal finances or retirement savings for that down payment, or looking at alternative lenders and SBA. However, when you get further down the road, what we want to see is, have those businesses performed as anticipated? If we are making those pro forma, projections on our financials, did you hit those financials? What does your now personal financial statement look like? Are you taking all the money out of your business? Are you being thoughtful about that growth? So making that shift, maybe from SBA to more of those conventional lending options that may have a stricter capital requirements and credit requirements and other things. As we think about growth and growing rapidly, it can be very intoxicating that we're growing fast. We've got a couple locations. However, you have to be really careful about what that looks like, because you want to sustain it and you want to grow it in a way that's meaningful. We talk a lot about, are you making money? If you're not making money in a business, it's a hobby, not a business. So we want to make sure that we're growing profitably and growing in a smart way, because if you don't, it can be financially lethal, not just for your business, but for your personal finances. So it's important to take that measured approach, go through those same steps of, let me evaluate this. Let me talk to my advisors. What are the resources? And if you're thinking about that second location or third location, make sure it works with the first location and it's not competing for the same customers. Do your due diligence and your homework. I know we'll hear from Cal and Carolyn more about some of their success that they've had. But you really just want to make sure that you have sound advice, sound advisors, and that you're being very tempered in your approach to make sure that you can sustain the growth that you've been able to achieve.
Great advice. Great advice. Any other thoughts on alternate financing sources beyond, say, a traditional commercial bank loan?
Yes, of course, we mentioned the SBA and those other options, which are all arranged through the bank, as you mentioned. There's also small business investment companies, the SBICs, who provide equity capital and long-term debt financing. Sometimes a franchisee can obtain direct financing from their franchises as well, but not all franchisors offer that. So you may need to go in and look at, as you mentioned, looking at that financial disclosure. But of course, talking with your banking partners first and foremost. I know here at KeyBank, we have what we call a financial wellness review that we can do on your personal finances, as well as a small business financial review. So we'll take you through to see where are you on your journey today, and where is it that you want to go, so that we're really building backwards to make sure that you get there.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Rachel. Bob, back to you for a minute. One of the items that you mentioned was a board of advisors. Can you talk a little bit about what it is, how it's, how it works, why it's important when you're thinking
Sure.
about growing a business or expanding to, say, even multi-unit franchises?
Agree, yeah. So we recommend that you develop a team of what I'll call trusted advisors, and that should include score mentors as well. But you should surround yourself with people like accountants, bankers, attorneys, and leveraging the resources as well of the franchisor. We tell our clients right from the very beginning, get a relationship with your banker, find a good attorney that can work with you, and also look at how an accountant could probably serve your business better than if you were trying to do it yourself. It's just a matter of having the right expertise. So it's especially important if you're considering, let's say, multi-unit operations. As you grow, you don't have enough time to manage all of your operations, your people, and everything that goes along with that as business issues arise. So, the best thing best advice I could give is to think about ensuring that you've got the right personnel in place, including that trusted advisory board, to make sure that you're successful and you've got the right people in the right positions. As an example, as your locations grow, I think you'll likely have to surrender some of the control on a day-to-day basis of your operations. So you might consider bringing in, a strong general manager. That gives you the opportunity to step away and look at the business as a business. So watch the business instead of being in the business to a point where you're just bogged down. Also, I would say consider your personal lifestyle. Everybody wants to make money and get rich, but determine what the cost of that is to your current lifestyle, and what it's going to look like in the future. If you're not comfortable right now with a good growth strategy, you may want to just stay where you are, but you may also want to make sure that whatever plans that you have for your business also fit into your lifestyle. So I think that's an area where you can get a good board of advisors, some trusted people that can work with you and help you grow in the direction that you set out for yourself.
Thank you for that, Bob. That's good, really good stuff. And I think we're at time here. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's participated. I don't know about you, but I certainly have learned some things today. Just wanted to touch quickly on some of the things that we've talked about. Remember, with franchising, a great advantage is that you're in business for yourself and you share in on the upside, but you're not in business by yourself. You've got that support network. There are many opportunities in a wide variety of industries at a wide cost basis in franchising. As I said, some you can get into for $15,000, and then there's ones that are millions, but there's literally thousands of them for you to explore. encourage you to research your options, ask questions, right? Conduct a self-evaluation. Are you ready to do it, or do you need some time to do your due diligence and get your plan together? Thoroughly investigate the franchise system, right? Thoroughly investigate it. Down payments and credit scores we've touched a lot on today. That's kind of where the rubber meets the road. They're important and they matter. Put numbers on paper. So know your growth plan, your cost, your projections, your assumptions around those projections. Speak the language of a banker. Don't be intimidated. You don't have to do it alone. There's all the folks on this call today. SCORE will roll up their sleeves with you and help you through this. So don't feel like you have to know how to be an expert in any of this. Utilize the resources that we've talked about, everyone on this call. And I think the last thing, my parting comment would hopefully this has instilled a little bit of a sense of optimism that, some of you on the call may have thought, geez, I could never, ever own my own business. And I think when you start breaking it down and you look at what we've talked about today, hopefully for many of you, it becomes much more of a realistic and attainable goal. So with that, I'll turn it back to the team. And again, thank you all for your time.
Thanks so much, Jim. In the interest of time, just a quick reminder, we're taking Q&A through the chat box. You can send it to me or the Q&A screen at the bottom. We will address all those questions at the conclusion. We've got some great ones right now, but we've got a superstar coming up, and he has a hard stop right at the top of the hour here at 3. And so I want to give him the floor and make sure he has a chance to share his experience with you. He's been on both the franchisor and franchisee side. And so I'm going to turn it to Stan to introduce Cal Golden. Stan?
Thanks, Ashley. And Cal Golden is not somebody that I've known ever to be able to jam a whole lot into a limited amount of time, because there's so much that he has to offer and share. But I'm going to ask him today, in interest of time, to do that, because we've gotten close on the clock here. Cal is somebody that's very special in franchising, in that I've known Calvin for 31 or 32 years. We sold franchises together early in my and his career. And literally, he's a demonstration of what franchising is all about, beyond dotting I's and crossing T's. On the relationship side of the business, Calvin's relationship with me and mine with him is demonstrative of how people are such a big part of the world of franchising. And while the money is necessary, it's all fuel to drive relationships, and those relationships are longstanding. Calvin is also an early stage employee of the Wingstop organization. He was one of the first people on the team, one of the founding members of that organization, and then went on to become a multi-unit Wingstop franchisee. So unlike me, I stayed in the franchise world, Cal, and I'm still working for someone. You, on the other hand, my friend, took that golden ring and turned it into many Wingstops and many successes in your business. And I'm going to ask you to share with our audience today some of the things that need to be considered when you're going from the franchisee's perspective for financing. What are the things that are going through your mind? I'm going to come back and comment on that after you're done, because I don't want to take any more of your time before the top of the hour. Cal Golden, please take it from there.
Hello, good afternoon, Stan Friedman, my good friend. So good to see you. Welcome to all the panelists, and I'm so honored to be here. When Stan called me and asked me to participate in this call, whenever Stan called, I just stop what I'm doing and say, yes, I'm all in. As Stan alluded to, my perspective in franchising is rather unique. I've been both the franchisor and now I'm the franchisee. 25 years ago, I got involved with a little company that consists of 2 guys here in the suburb of Dallas, a little city called Garland, Texas. A concept, a guy had this idea that he could really make a concept out of just selling chicken wings. Well, he convinced me of that. So the 3 of us went forward and established this brand called Wingstop. Fast forward to today, $2 billion business, international business, publicly traded. Who would have thought? Who would have thought this little concept would just grow up to be this monster brand to lead this segment? I was very blessed because my job initially was to come on board and develop the franchise business model. I'm a corporate guy at heart, at least I think I am. I love to hear what you're saying, Bob, at SCORE. That brings back music to my ear. Jim, I love to hear all about the financing. Rachel, that's fantastic. But when I stepped out of the corporate side and got on the franchisee side, to where I literally had to practice what I've been preaching, Stan, for the past 37 years, I found out that the pendulum, not only does it swing the opposite direction, it's a little bit different. Because you have to be committed, as Rachel said. You have to go all in. I had one business plan, and I had written many business plans. Bob, I'd seen a lot of business plans, Jim. I had one business plan. And for those of you who are looking at this on Facebook Live, I want to share with you, your business plan should be very simple, and that is to succeed. Anything short of that, you're wasting your time. It looks good on paper, but when the paper is over, the ink is dry, and the banker got it, the rubber has met the road. It's time for you to pay the rent, drive some business, get some employees, and make it happen. And my friend, at that point, you're an entrepreneur. It's a different world. It's a different world. Now, the good news is, it's a great world. When I started with Wingstop, my job was to develop the franchise system. We had no franchise system. Matter of fact, Antonio Swat, the original principal, didn't really know what franchises were. I brought my 30-some years of experience, having been out in the street with Stan, selling franchises door to door all over the United States. Back in the days when we were selling an impossible franchise for a whole lot of money, Stan, you remember those days. Who would give us $25,000 for what we were doing? You know, a lot of people did. But I took my expertise to develop this brand. And I talked about being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that's true. I talked about the benefits of having systems and tools developed to help you succeed, and that's true. One thing I didn't talk about is that the system and tool that you really need is you. It's
Alvin,
you.
to that point, can I ask you to speak for a few seconds on what I define as true entrepreneurship is spending a few years of your life doing the things that nobody wants to do so that you can spend the rest of your life doing the things that nobody else can do.
Yeah.
What is that early stage commitment? What does it mean when you have to consider all the things that you have to do being all in? What does that do to help you get through those rainy days? Because you're going to have those early on as a franchisee, are you not?
Yeah, well, first thing, you're absolutely right. I recommend to anyone, first thing I recommend is to make sure that you talk about it with your family first. You're going to need to have home on your side. I remember when I came home and I told my family I was going to quit. I had girls then. My daughters then were 10 and 11. And I never forget my 11-year-old daughter. She just went into shock. She said, "Dad, you're going to quit your good job and fried chicken?" She said, "I'm so embarrassed." She couldn't stand it. "You're going to fry chicken? Dad, you went to school. You got a college degree. You're going to fry chicken?" She said, "Dad, I can't believe it." She just said, "I'm just so in distraught." I remember she put her head up to her head and said, "Oh, I just can't take it. I just can't take it. I'm just so embarrassed. You know, my dad's going to fry chicken." I had my other daughter said, "Dad, we're going to be poor." I looked at my wife. I said, "Honey, can I tell her?" And my wife said, "Tell her." I looked at my daughter. I said, "Honey, you just don't know. You're poor already, and you just don't know it." Fast forward today, my daughter that said we were going to be poor, sent her through law school. My daughter's a judge. She sits on the bench. I can control what I do for myself. I'm going to leave here in a little bit and go get my 14-year-old granddaughter from school. That's why I have to cut out early. But it's the commitment that has to be made. those were some tough days because I went from a good job. I went from a relatively secure position, like many of those of you who are looking at me now saying, do I quit my job and take this risk on being an entrepreneur? My answer to that question is real simple. Absolutely. Absolutely do it. Because if you think about it, Stan, this is what I share with a lot of people, and I give this talk all over. But if you look at the worst case scenario, what's the worst thing that can happen if you step away from that corporate W-2 job that pays well? You're probably home based now due to the pandemic anyway. If you step away from that job and you went out here and you bought a franchise, whatever it is, and you tried it and you put your all in it, if the worst thing that can happen is what? You can go back to work. Well, if you can go back to work, if that's the worst thing that can happen, ladies and gentlemen, many of us are living the worst days of our life right now, and we don't even know it.
Calvin.
So what I'm here to tell you and what I'm here to encourage you to do, there is no question. I've been on the other side of the desk. I've been the franchisor. I can talk the talk. I've walked the walk. I've signed a lot of franchise agreements. I've looked that person right now and I've said it's gonna work. The reason it's gonna work is because that person that's gonna sit there makes it work. I coined a term many years ago that all the Wingstop franchisors are using now, and that is in the grease. You don't know what it's like being a restaurateur in the Wingstop business unless you get in the grease. I'm just saying you gotta get greasy before it gets easy. You gotta do it. You just gotta do it.
And the point you made about the freedom that your life gives you now, Calvin's talking about his 14-year-old grandchild, but that's just one of many, right? Calvin's the father of 3 with 11 grandkids.
11
grandkids, and has over the years had multiple brands and multiple units of Wingstop. So like any other business, you can adjust your threshold for risk. You can adjust the importance of lifestyle balance versus business ownership. And you cannot be a one-size-fits-all business, even if it is a huge brand like Wingstop, and many may not be able to capitalize an investment of that size in today's world. But our next speaker will help you understand that it isn't a one-size-fits-all. And when you meet Carol and Thurston, we'll talk about that in greater depth. Calvin, I don't want to keep you any longer. My clock says 1 minute left to go. A parting thought, if you would.
Well, you know, if I had one last thought, I would just share with everyone, don't hesitate. As Carol will tell you, I'm sure, do your due diligence true, but don't hesitate. Let's go ahead and do it. You see, the one thing we can't control, and Stan just talked about the 1 minute left, we can't control time. It's going to be an hour from now, whether you're in DC, Cleveland, Chicago, New York, an hour from now is an hour from now. The difference, ladies and gentlemen, is what you choose to do with that hour from now. One of the things I was up against, Phil, is that I knew that chronologically in my life, I was already getting older. For those of you who are out here, and I share this all the time, don't mean to sound morbid, but if you were, let's say, an African-American male, life expectancy in this country is 74.9 years. If you're 50 years old and you're listening to me, what are you waiting on? You're 66% dead. What are you waiting on? Time is running out. Make a difference. Take that hour you got left and do it. Do it. Franchising is the way.
It is.
Franchising is the way. See you later, my good friend.
Calvin, thank you so much for sharing a piece of your day with us, and we'll circle back and talk soon. Be safe.
Certainly my pleasure. Goodbye.
All right. So I'm going to do what I should have done sooner, properly introduce myself. My name is Stan Friedman. I'm the president of FRM Solutions, and I'm celebrating my 33rd year in franchising. in leadership for the IFA for 24 years as a member of what was first called the Minorities in Franchising Committee, which later became our Diversity Institute, which I helped co-found in 2007 and have proudly been sitting on the board of ever since. Carolyn Thurston, who you're about to meet, is somebody who came to IFA. I can't believe it's been 5 years or so already, Carolyn, but we met in 2016.
Yes.
And yours company, Wisdom Senior Care, unlike Cal with Wingstop, is not a brand that has national notoriety. It's not a brand that's renowned for years with a trademark that everyone knows. You and your husband, Charles, are building this from the heart and from the start with your business, a market at a time, a franchisee at a time, which is why I asked you here today as well, to have the balance between Calvin as a unit owner of a large brand and you as the czar and founder of a smaller brand, to help the audience understand that it's not a one size fits all and that there are opportunities for those in franchising as a Zor or a Z, from both home-based to large footprint perspectives. Carolyn, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do in speaking today about the franchisor's perspective on capital and what it is you're looking for, I want to just set the table for one piece in front of that, which everyone has touched on today, which is passion, which is the need for you to have an understanding of who you are and what it is that drives you. And there is an assessment tool that I'm going to ask Hader if you would put the link up into the chat, that everyone here today who's on this webinar will have the opportunity at no cost to yourself to take a survey, take an assessment tool that helps you learn your introspective, helps you learn more about yourself, so that when you look for franchises, you may better have an idea of what drives you. It's important that you know what drives you so that the key to your door never becomes the heaviest thing that you hold. If it's just a job or a replacement for a job, a franchise is probably not a good idea. But if you think of it like having another child, as a lifelong commitment, as something you're going to grow and nurture, then it becomes a lot easier to consider what it is you're taking on. And that's the mentality and mindset that I think keeps the winners separated from those who don't have the kinds of passion that you've just heard from Cal Golden. Carolyn, you've had 20 years in the healthcare and health space, and you and Charles stepped out and did what you did. Spend a minute telling us what drove that.
Wow. Thank you. I feel like it's a tremendous honor to be amongst such great experience here. Bob, Jim, and Rachel, I really, truly wished that as my journey got started, that I had known about you and would have received this type of information. So I thank KeyBank and I thank the IFA for putting this together. For all of you who are listening, this is powerful information. This is giving you a great head start. And when I got started, it was not this way. I just had a passion and I wanted to help people. And I found myself actually beginning to take that step out on faith. And I decided to just fill out an application. I never had an ideal about being a franchisor. All I wanted to do was help seniors stay in their home. So I started doing that in 2006. And listen, I had no business knowledge, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do this, but this is my story. So I'm just going to tell you what happened. And that's why you can learn from me and the passion that's in me to help other business owners not to go through what I had to go through and learn the hard way. So I had a passion and I started helping these seniors be able to stay in their home. And I did that from 2006 till about 2015, 16, something happened. I found myself hitting the wall. And Charles, who's my husband, is my greatest supporter. He was my biggest cheerleader. And when Cal talks about having family there, when you look at stepping out on faith and you don't know how things are going to work out, you have to have people that's going to be there in your corner. So he's always been there. But I found myself at this point, my passion, I was starting to lose it. And it really frightened me. So I started seeking out what could be done. So Charles and I were able, that's why it's great that you're listening and you're hearing what you need to do to set up so you can start your business off on the right foot. We had a successful business, but I was doing everything. I was wearing so many different hats. I was tired physically, I was tired emotionally. I was helping many people start their own businesses. And we ended up coming into relationship or partnership with business coaches that helped to turn our perspective around. They started helping us open up our mindset. And look, that's when, Stan, we found out about the IFA. And that was our first step into franchising. And we found this place, this atmosphere where people were so willing to help us, to provide us knowledge. I know people are asking, I think I would like to be a franchisor. Well, that's a great place for you to come and actually get around other franchisors and ask them questions. Ask them about, what do you need? How much capital should you have? Just find out what does it take to even get it up off the ground. And so we were able to walk in there and start getting educated. And then it was just clear to us that we have this passion to help other business owners, not to work in their business, as everybody has stated here, but to truly work on their business. And so that stand is what continues to fuel us. That continues as we are able to help people come into the franchising world, because there's so many people who don't even know that Wisdom Senior Care, we're an in-home aid service. We're able to help seniors stay in their home. Did you even realize that senior care is a franchise? Did you know that there's people who they perform cleaning? That's a franchise. So I think it's great that you're educating yourself now so that you can learn that it's not all just retail or restaurants, right? But there's other type of industries that are there. And look, when you're looking at, you have this desire and passion. If you join into a franchising system, it can't guarantee you anything, but you've got a partnership. You got people working alongside of you to help you be more successful.
I want to point to something too that just clarifies what you've stated today, Carolyn, because 5 years ago, you weren't yet a franchisor.
No, we were just getting started. Yep.
So for the benefit of the audience and for full transparency, 5 years later, Carolyn was just elected to the board of directors of the International Franchise Association. And Carolyn is sitting in leadership on the IFA's newly seated Black Franchise Leadership Council, which is a subset of our Diversity Institute. And in the leadership role that Carolyn is involved with that council, the four cornerstones of the work that they will do are going to be around community partnerships,
yes,
marketing and communication outreach, which is something that we're doing right here today,
yes,
education and learning, which we are doing right here today. And this program centers on the fourth cornerstone, which is all about access to capital and funding and being able to learn that there are ways to, when somebody says to you, you can own your business and own your life, you look to your left and your right now, and you say, who are you talking to? You can't be talking to me. And each of us is here today to tell you, yeah, we are. We are talking to you.
Yeah.
So if it's a Wingstop on one end of the spectrum and it's a Wisdom Senior Care on the other end of the spectrum,
yeah,
there are a wealth of opportunities for any and all people who want to take that step. And there are ways to do it with tax credits, with COVID credits, with place-based tax credits, with wage-based tax credits. Check in your communities and find any and all of those that may be locally available, because many of those types of credits are very local. They're city or state or county driven. Carolyn, what do you look for from a prospective franchisee? We've heard all of Jim's and everyone's discussion today about what the bank wants and what it is they have to bring, but aspirationally, what do you look for? And what do you need to see in somebody to know that they've got the money as well as the backbone to do what you want from them?
Right. So that's one thing, with Wisdom Senior Care, it's not all about the money, right? So even getting started, Stan, 5 years ago, we're not looking for just investors, right? Because of what we do, we're looking for people who truly have a heart. They truly have that compassion. They want to make a difference in their local community to help seniors, their families, but you know who also they're helping in their local communities? They're also helping to create job opportunities, career paths for their caregivers as well. So those are the type people that we're looking for. First of all, those people who have that faith and they have a commitment. They know that this is something, not that they're looking at doing part-time, but they truly are committed. I think some people are looking right now and deciding, because fear gets in the way, right? It does for all of us, but you have to look at taking that step. Go ahead and take the step, and don't, like Cal very well put it, don't let time get away from you, because when you take and you close that door, you have to go all in. So you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you are successful. And we look for people who have integrity. That's what another thing that we're looking for as well. Integrity plays a big part. And of course, you financially have to be able to have capital to work. And, we don't live in a fairy tale. That's why I appreciate what Jim, how the panel and Rachel, they put out exactly what does it take. You can start doing your homework now and know how much does the franchise that you want to get into, how much does it cost? What would my credit score have to be? And maybe if a banker says no to you, because my story, I will tell you, I had many times that the doors were closed on me and they said no. Many, many times. But did that cause me to stop? No. Maybe it was a little bit delayed. I had to find alternative ways to still make it happen. But when you have that passion, you have that dream, there is a way for you to be able to still be successful.
And the question that you answered about not taking somebody part-time, there will be those brands out there. There will be opportunities where part-time involvement would be okay. It's important, though, that you know that some brands won't favor that. You need to be asking those questions when you're doing due diligence and talking with people like Carolyn, who might be your potentially new franchisor. I also want to just touch back on that Zoracle again, because to me, it's really important to know what's important to you before you try to go figure out whether you can do what's important for the franchisor. I remember meeting a gentleman when I was in the chicken wing business who came to me as a prospective franchisee, and he was the general manager of a huge supermarket, big chain, it was Publix, and he was the manager of a public store, general manager. He had all the skills in the world that a franchisor like me would look for in a prospective franchisee. We were a small little 1,200 square foot store. We didn't have 80 items in inventory. This guy's running a big payroll and a big store. He could do it all. But what I discovered about him in the course of me doing my due diligence on him was that he was a single father. He'd lost his wife to cancer and he had young kids. And to me, as great as he'd have been in my business called for nights. It called for weekends. It called for being in your store at times where, Daddy, let's go to the zoo, or Daddy, help me with my homework. And I couldn't compete with that. So it was another important consideration. He could have had all the money. He could have had all the capital. He could have had all the ability to do the things that I would have wanted from him, except the most important, which would have been to be in his business. So it really is important for you to know what's important to you first, and then can you afford the dream? And the last thing I'd say before I ask you to take it back from me, Carolyn, is it's kind of like buying a house too.
Yes.
You know how much you can afford before you start looking at franchises that might be like Calvin's, where you're not qualified for a Wingstop. If you start, think of it like buying a house. If you start looking at $2 million homes, and then you find out you're only qualified for a $250,000 mortgage, nothing you look at anymore is going to look good to you. So don't do that to yourself here, because you'll kind of squash your own dream. Carolyn, what are parting thoughts before we go to Q&A that you can share with this audience? If there were one thing you could tell them above all else that you're looking for from them as qualified and financially capable, what kind of matters most?
Another thing that matters is I really believe business. When you look at being an entrepreneur, is you might be doing a service or a trade for fee, but also you have a great opportunity to make a difference in others' lives. And so with wisdom, we're looking for business owners who can truly grow other people and make a difference. At the same time, you're growing your business. And I think it's awesome when you have the opportunity to be blessed and you're able to share that blessing with others.
I think, Ashley, that we are at our stop point here at 3:15 before we open to general Q&A, and I want to be mindful of the clock since we're coming close to the end. What do you think?
I think that's great timing. And I just want to, first of all, we go to Q&A. We do have some wonderful Q&A questions teed up, both for the folks on the baking side of things, and then for Stan and Carolyn as well. One of the things that we've seen throughout all of this, we've got a couple of questions about just the general franchising industry. How do I get started? What kind of things do I need to look at aside from the financing, which we're focusing on today? So I do want to let everybody know that, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is the first of a 4-part series. Our next program will be on May 20th, and that program is really going to dig in to the nuts and bolts of the franchising model, resources that are available, how people can get started. And so, today we want to focus on the financing, but we really hope you can join us on May 20th to get a deeper dive into the franchising model and what's available to you there. We'll be sending out additional information after this call about that program, as well as all of the different links that we've shared, Key for Women, information about Zoracle that Stan provided. So you will have access to those resources once again. But I do want to use our remaining, looks like 12 minutes to address some of the great questions that have come in. So what I first want to do is we're probably going to go back to Jim on these couple of questions here. And this kind of gets into the funding aspect. So we've got a couple of folks who are asking, first of all, do you do fund nationwide for franchises? Is there a certain person to contact, say, if you're in Atlanta versus, you're based in Cleveland? Is there a resource at KeyBank that someone should reach out to find that local contact?
Am I off mute?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. We do, for certain brands, offer financing in all 50 states. For those that we do not, we'll make loans within our geographic footprint. So for KeyBank, it's primarily the Northeast, the Midwest, a few of the Rocky Mountain states, and then the Pacific Northwest. There's 17 states across the northern part of the country that we'll lend to.
Great. So another kind of question definitely on the financing side. From your perspective, what type of financing or funding sources would be best? And this is probably something to open it up to the full panel. But traditional funding, microloans, angel investors, what are your perspectives on some of those alternate funding types?
Yeah, I think generally your lowest cost of capital, your lowest cost to borrow is going to be through a traditional bank. If you have investors that come in, friends and sometimes friends and family, the cost of capital might be a little bit higher, sometimes less, depending on your friends and family. But generally, a bank loan is typically a rate around prime plus 2%. For a startup, oftentimes with not a lot of collateral or any background or history, is generally a pretty low cost of capital.
Can I throw in on that too as
Yeah.
a creative opportunity could be somebody who was looking to do a single unit and was going to do a HELOC or an SBA loan or a 401k conversion. There are out there investors in private equity today who are interested in well-qualified potential buyers. So somebody who's got industry experience and never thought he could find his way into ownership and doesn't think that he can afford to, could actually go into debt for half of what the business cost might be. And this equity partner would maybe throw in 49 or even up to 50% of capital for equity, and maybe even put in more money than you would have done for a single unit now, and help you get to 2 or 3 if you are highly qualified. And so you may own a little less, but you own less of more. And you've got a partner who's got seasoning and experience within the space to help guide the back end and the scale of the business. So it's another creative way to pursue opportunities a little bit outside the box, but then you still have to come to Jim for the other half of that money. And so it's the best of 2 worlds. You're leveraging, debt, but you're also gaining equity and becoming part of something bigger. So there are opportunities like that out there, and we'll share some resource up on that as well post.
Yeah, that's a great thought, right? Bringing in a partner, bringing in an equity partner. I always am careful when I put this out. I'll put it out nonetheless. Tapping a 401k, right, is something that a lot of people do because maybe you might not have a lot of cash in, say, your checking account. You got enough to kind of live and pay your bills and exist, but you've squirreled away a little bit of money over in the 401k. Sometimes people can tap that and roll that into a loan. Reason I'm cautious putting that advice out there, it's not advice, it's scary because that's retirement. But it's a big decision.
Well, but it's right back to what Calvin said, though. It's, there's no investment in business that doesn't involve risk. It's just
exactly.
There's a threshold for risk that you've got to be able to say you're willing to take, whether it's a home equity or your retirement. Both cases, you're looking at wealth and legacy, and you're looking at big decisions. And that's why I think Calvin was so spot on in saying you need your wife, you need your family, you need your spouse, you need home support in any decision that you make.
But if you're looking at a franchise that's attainable within your range, this is good conversation because there's more than one way to cobble it together. It can be a bank loan, it could be grants, it could be a partner, it could be an equity partner, it could be tapping a 401k, it could be a lot of things. It could just be shifting down to a franchise that is within your means at this point in time. So don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. There's lots of ways to get there.
Thanks, Jim. I think that's a great segue into one of the other questions that we had, because one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I think this is coming through in all of everybody's remarks really, is that there are a number of resources available. There are different partnerships that you can take advantage of, resources like the IFA, KeyBank, and one of the questions that we've gotten from a number of people has to do with Key for Women. And so I want to bring Rachel back. One of the specific questions, and I know we put this up in the chat, was how you can join. And so you've got that link to join, and we will also send that around again in the follow-up. But we got a specific question for you, Rachel. Is Key for Women a local organization for local communities, or is it open and available for any woman to join?
It is open for any woman to join. And although, as Jim mentioned, that we only finance certain franchisees throughout the United States versus just our footprint, the Key for Women is in our footprint where we have local advisors that can help you. However, we are open across the country. One thing we want to do is to really spread the resources that we have to empower women to take that step, to take that leap. We've got a lot of content where we'll be talking about some of those things. I know Stan and Cal all mentioned about how do you balance that home and work. we'll be coming back in July with a Power Moms panel with New York Times bestselling author Joanne Loveland and some kick butt CEO women and executives talking about how did they balance, how did they take that leap. So we've got a great balance between some of the solutions, financial access to capital topics that we'll talk about. We also get to that personal professional development and some of those other soft skills and topics to really help you succeed in business. So we encourage everyone to join. Our webinars are open. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, where you can find our information in addition to going to key.com/join K4W.
Thanks so much, Rachel. One more question here for the KeyBank folks. Does KeyBank fund franchisees who are looking to expand into opportunity zones?
Rachel?
That we would probably have to check on. We do a lot of financing in our community benefits plan. We just expanded that to $40 billion. We committed in 2017, $18 billion. We have since expanded that. From that perspective, we fund in a lot of different areas, and there may be special opportunities in some of those different tracks, but I encourage you to reach out to a banker. Also, you've got all of us. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We're all on LinkedIn, very active. We work together on a number of different initiatives. Also, if you have specific questions outside of just Key for Women, feel free to email us as well at key4women@keybank.com. Great.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We got another question, and I want to throw it over to Stan and Carolyn. I think that you will be able to address this and especially provide some resources here. What are the franchises who would be the most likely to establish a presence in underserved communities? And what would those determining factors be as far as deciding where, so location-based decisions?
Can I jump, Carolyn, or do you want to go first?
No, you, Stan. Go ahead.
I say the answer to that is the smart franchisors are the ones that would do that. And literally, it's a different set of rules that you have to be concerned with in some cases, with putting a franchise in underserved communities. Could be in inner city, could be different types of crime problems that are associated with having a business in the inner city or the underserved markets. But a smart franchisor is going to see that there is an economic opportunity. People are riding buses to get to services that aren't available to them, which should be. And there is disposable income in those markets that's going untapped, or it's not being kept in that marketplace. It's getting on that bus and taking a ride and serving another community. And so you just have to think it through. Right. If you're doing things in the suburbs, in some cases, a Wingstop may have a rent factor that's going to be, 200% greater than a rent factor might be in an inner city location. Well, that's kind of desirable, but the offset to that is you have to think about different levels of security and taking care of your people and making sure everyone is safe. I think historically, if a franchisor puts a business into an underserved community and brings the franchisee from within that community, talk to the pastors in the churches, find somebody from within that community that has the level of experience that can bring that business into that marketplace and create jobs and opportunities for kids that want those jobs and need them and will come to work and learn how to get a career path going. You'll be doing well by doing good, not just doing good.
Yeah, I would agree tremendously with what Stan has stated, and also keeping in mind that the key point, even in underserved, depends on what type of employment opportunities there will be for them. There's the career ladder. I think any franchisor is going to be looking at how can you help someone take them from where they are right now and be able to help them grow to wherever it is that they would like to be, from maybe working as an employee to eventually owning their own franchise system. That's a possibility as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I know that we're all very busy these days. And so I do think we're going to have to wrap up. I know there are a couple questions that we weren't completely able to address today. But like I said, we have a program on May 20th that will really dig into the franchising model and how people can get started. And so I'm going to go ahead and close up, but I will first say, you will get an email from us with all of the resources that we've discussed today, information on the next program, and we will keep you involved and in the loop as we move forward. So thank you, first of all, to all of our panelists for sharing their expertise and their time with us today. Thank you to the U.S. Black Chamber for helping us get the word out, really helping us expand our footprint. This is one of the things that is key to us this year at the IFA Foundation, is working with new partners, working with new groups, really trying to show people that franchising is a great opportunity. There are, a lot of people, and we heard this over and over throughout all of the stories today. It seems daunting to start on the road, but there are resources available. There are a wealth of folks ready and willing to help. And access to capital does not have to be the roadblock. We are at the point in time where there are a plethora of opportunities, and we are all here to be resources for you all. Thank you.
Ashley?
Again. Oh, Stan, go ahead.
I wanted to just, before you turned it off, I just wanted to thank KeyBank again for their tremendous commitment to the IFA's Educational Foundation, for the amount of money that they have earmarked to IFA's Educational Foundation for the production of programs like this to help educate and communicate, and in collaboration with the Black Chamber for today's event. Who could have asked for more resource coming from interested parties in all directions to help make this possible? And I didn't want that to go unnoticed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stan. That was actually going to be my closing remark. We will echo that. I actually had a nightmare last night that I somehow left that out. And so I made a big, bold note to myself to thank KeyBank so much.
Oh, you're both very, very welcome. And it is absolutely our privilege.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
you again to everybody. We will get this recording out there. Please, once we get this all sent around, please share it with your networks. We want to broaden all of our networks and our connections. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Take care.